Do me a favor. Could you say senator instead of ma'am?
I love these members that get up and say, read the bill.
What difference at this point does it make?
The whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
We know that the free market is nonsense.
This liberal will be all about socializing, will be about basically taking over and the government running all of your companies.
The time has come for unfiltered, politically incorrect common sense. Welcome to the wild world of Cowboy Logic.
And welcome to the wild, woolly world of Cowboy Logic. Another Tuesday, another 8 gazillion things going on out of Washington, D.C. that make absolutely no sense unless you're anti-American. That's right, I said it.
I would prefer not to deal with these issues. It's like giving a baby pig a haircut. There's a lot of squealing, but very little wool.
That would be Vladimir Putin talking about Snowden. Oh, but that's not what I want to get to today.
I was talking about Obama.
No, yeah, I think he was kind of a backhanded thing at Obama. But while you were hard at work today, Don, attempting to earn a living and pay your taxes and be a good American, I was sitting at home screaming at the TV as Barack Obama gave a press conference about his new National Action Climate Plan. Is there a mop here? Because my head is about to explode and it needs to be cleaned up. I'm just screaming at the TV. Essentially what he's doing is instigating cap and trade. And since he couldn't do it legally through the checks and balances that would be a constitution that we have here in the United States, he said, you know what? I can't get it done. I'm going to go do my executive order. And you got to love Matt Drudge. On the headlines there's a picture of Obama looking like Superman. Here he comes to save the planet. Oh, my gosh. It just can't get any worse. And it does. Every week I sit here and I go, no, this can't be happening. This can't be happening. First of all right, it would be nice to have a clean planet. Unfortunately, when you've got billions of people in the world, you're going to have some pollution. So what Obama did was he complained about making this announcement when it was hot out. When it's almost July in Virginia, he had to take off his jacket because it was hot. And he's in Georgetown University where, the people are going to love him to death anyhow because he's like a god to them. So they start whistling like they're looking at, some
rock
star. Yeah. It's always hot in Virginia now. Hello? This is what used to crack me up when Fox 5 in New York used to send me to the George Washington Bridge overpass in January when it was snowing and say, show us the snow. It's January. Now, if it's August and it's snowing, yeah, okay, then you got a problem. But if it's August or almost July and it's hot, chances are it's going to be hot in Virginia. It's not global warming. This is one of the coldest winters we've ever had. And in fact, since global warming didn't work, we now have climate change. Don't you notice that? Anyhow, but this whole thing is something he's been pushing for some 4 years now. And he essentially put a nail in the coffin of coal and the coal industry. Because he's not exactly saying to the coal industry you can't operate, but what he's doing is he's putting so many government restrictions in there, and there is no technology to meet the carbon emissions standards that the government is putting in here. So all these coal-fired plants are going to have to shut down. Now, let's look at the facts here. The federal government's goal is they want 20% from renewable resources in the next 7 years. And that sounds just all, sweetness and light, but the technology is not there. The EPA nominee he wants confirmed, and he, smacked Congress around by saying, how come we can't confirm this? And we can't kowtow to the Flat Earth Society. Global warming is definitely there. That's not true. That is absolutely not true. In fact, more and more scientists are saying that global warming is not something that is really man-made the way they're saying it is, that it's a natural phenomenon. But by 2030, the Heritage Foundation is saying 42% apparently is going to be from natural gas. So what's he going to do? Then go after natural gas as well? In 2012, carbon emissions was down over 16%. The free market was working on its own. It's not going to happen overnight. What is going to happen very quickly is as many as 500,000 jobs are going to be killed in the next 10 years, based on unproven technology and the fact that he wants wind and solar, which so far has not worked, and he just throws billions after it, like you might as well flush it down the toilet. The plan is going to circumvent Congress, and Jay Carney even said we're going to use executive fiats. So it's there, and that's it. Now, on the Keystone Pipeline, he threw a bone to environmentalists even there, saying he'll okay it only if it does not affect carbon pollution. So there you have it. There goes the Keystone Pipeline. That ain't going to happen. Natural gas, again, strengthened he wants, but without methane emissions. So now that's possibly in his crosshairs, too. So let's look at...
Well, that's something we've got a lot around this farm.
Let's look... With 11 horses. That would be methane and cows, yes. But more clean energy. He wants carbon wind doubled in the next 4 years. Where are the environmentalists with all the birds that are being killed by these wind turbines? Does anybody notice that?
Do you remember when we flew to L.A.?
Mm-hmm.
That would have been 2007, maybe?
Yeah.
And at 35,000 feet, we saw the blades of the windmills,
mm-hmm.
of the turbines.
Mm-hmm.
Turbines.
Well,
and then when we got to L.A., we saw turbines.
But the point is...
No, that was Michigan. I'm sorry.
Not... Yes, really. It's not... And Toledo, Ohio. It's not working. You look at... Does Solyndra ring a bell? How many millions have been spent and virtually hardly any, maybe just a handful of jobs created? And I'm not against clean energy. It's just you got to give it time. This is like telling somebody after the Model T was invented that they got to, have a car that gets 100 miles a gallon and, has to be, no emissions or anything like that. Something that would be created in 2013, 100 years ago. It's just, it's not happening overnight. It needs time.
Well, back in 2010, I had a massive diatribe that at the time you couldn't even post it all on Facebook, and I had to do it in separate postings. And it discussed cap and trade. It discussed the key players in it. And I think it's time to bring that back out again. I need to dig through and find that, because I'd be real curious if all the same little players aren't involved in this.
Well, they weren't going to take no for an answer. They have an agenda. They've got health care. They've got genetically modified foods that only work for a year. And now they're going to have a situation where they're going to eliminate, essentially, our chance to warm our homes in the winter, heat our homes, heat our homes in the winter and cool our homes in the summer. And certainly gasoline is going to be affected. He put his sights on big oil and all that stuff, too. So the middle class is getting squeezed out, especially the lower middle class. Now you've got immigration on top of all this, which we're going to get to in big time with our guest, K. Carl Smith, which I will talk about in just a moment. But you've got the carbon footprint. This is really a war on capitalism. He's saying he wants to, eliminate the carbon footprint and cut down the carbon footprint because, quote, I refuse to condemn your generation and future generations to a planet that is beyond fixing. Let's look at his carbon footprint.
Yeah.
Let's look at $1 billion, I believe he spent last year traveling around the world. And while he was talking, by the way, it was pretty ironic. You kept hearing airplanes going overhead, drowning him out. It was kind of funny, actually. It's unbelievable. It really is. No government has ever worked better than the private free market economy, within a private free market economy, not with the government overseeing everything that's going on. This is unbelievable to me that this president produces a humongous carbon footprint, doesn't care, flies all around the world, and then says, I don't want to condemn future generations to a planet that is beyond fixing. But it's okay if he condemns future generations to a debt that they will never, ever dig themselves out of. If you're pregnant right now, the second your child breathes its first breath, what is it? $53,000?
53 grand.
53 grand. The second that kid hits the ground is what it's going to owe the government. And obviously, if we keep spending the way we're doing, it's going to be worse. Oh, my gosh.
Well, the thing
my
is,
head was exploding today.
This diatribe that I did back in 2010 clearly points out the special interest in what's going on with cap and trade.
It's the war on capitalism. That's what it is. It's the war on the free market
but it's
economy.
also it's a money grab for a lot of stuff, a lot of organizations that are based out of Chicago. Okay?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
And so I think I'll dig that back out and find out who's involved in this now compared to the names I cited in 2010, because I guarantee you the players are still there.
Yep. New efficiency standards for vehicles, appliances, and buildings. All limits intended to help reduce carbon emissions by 3 billion metric tons over 17 years. Okay, has anybody ever seen a picture recently of some of the cities in China?
Oh,
where
yeah.
the people are walking around.
Well, Hong Kong, wasn't Singapore.
Yeah. And so let me ask you this. Do you think us cutting back, when I was in Moscow, probably like 15, 20 years ago, you could not, every car that drove around was like a two-stroke engine. It was like breathing in the fumes from a boat.
It probably was a two-stroke engine.
Yeah, it actually, I think it was. But, I mean, you really could not breathe. It was horrible. You had to pull your shirt over your nose. That's
I
want to
know where the United States ranks in all this. Globally, where do we rank with carbon emissions?
Well, it doesn't matter because this, again, it's all a money grab. All this is a money grab because what are you going to do? Vladimir Putin's going to laugh at you if you say, you got to cut down your carbon emissions or else we're going to fine you. He's like, yeah, right. You're going to tell that to the Chinese? You're going to tell that to, Asia in general or Africa or emerging countries, all right, emerging nations. The last thing on earth that they're going to worry about when they're trying to dig themselves out of a financial hole is whether or not they're polluting. And what are we doing? We're turning into that situation. We're becoming that situation. Has anybody ever seen a picture of the Rio Grande and the Mexican side and the American side?
There's a lot more cardboard on the Mexican side.
There's a lot more carbon emissions too. There's a lot more pollution. Let's
a lot
put it
more
that way.
cardboard emissions.
Stop.
It does. It looks like a little cardboard village.
Oh my God. And then there's the super greenhouse gases emitted by refrigerators and air conditioning units. It's part of a commitment reached last month with China. Okay, sure. And I have a oceanside property in Arizona for you too. This is just pathetic. All right. Then we got the immigration bill, and that's something that that's going to do nothing but kill any kind of job opportunities for lower skilled Americans. And that brings us to the guest that we are going to be talking to very shortly, and I'm so looking forward to this. K. Carl Smith, he's the founder of the Frederick Douglass Republicans, and he is just an amazing person. He resigned from a motivational speaking career to rededicate himself to defending liberty. He's also a U.S. Army officer. We're going to be talking to him shortly about his work and trying to enlighten, basically to take over, I guess, where the public education system fails, especially inner city youths, because it's getting to the point where ignorance is not bliss anymore. Ignorance is going to get us in serious, serious trouble. And K. Carl Smith is putting his money where his mouth is, and he is trying to educate, really, and challenge these kids to wake up and realize what is really happening in this country. And hopefully he can make a major change, and we can get things rolling in the right direction, because I just see us going down the road to ruin at this point.
Well, there's a couple of really, in our, for lack of a better word, pre-interview with K. Carl on Sunday. One of the things that really stuck in my mind was the fact that, when we first started talking to him, I was under the impression that this was going to be primarily a black-dominated conversation. Okay, K. Carl's a black guy. We're talking about Frederick Douglass, a black guy, and racism. And I'm thinking, okay, well, we're going to get the other side of the story, me being a white guy. Well, the beauty of what we're going to talk about tonight is that this whole concept, this whole approach, and this re-education, or actually just how about an education, is for all Americans. All Americans need to listen to this, regardless of what color you are. And I walked away from that pre-interview pretty pumped up because I told K. Carl, I said, man, I'm getting sick and tired of being labeled a racist by white people. Mm-hmm. Okay? And, he came right back with the ammo that you need. And I really urge you guys that are listening, take notes tonight to what this gentleman has to say because he is truly speaking the gospel.
He absolutely is. We're going to be talking to him shortly. Just a couple more things that you probably sort of are hearing, but not really hearing. What's going on with this Gang of 8 amnesty, because that's exactly what it is. It's amnesty for some 50 million illegal aliens. Did you know 30% of the inmates in prisons in this country are illegal aliens? Did you know that? Did you know that? I did know that. So ask yourself, who gets hurt most by making people who came in here illegally legal? That's really the main thing. Let me address one thing with regard to this immigration deal. Mm-hmm. The CBO, I believe, has estimated that this is going to allow in excess of 40 million immigrants, primarily of Mexico, into our country. Am I correct with that? Yes. Okay. I've spoken with a lot of my black friends, and a question that I asked them was, out of 330 plus million people that live in the United States, what percentage of that entire population do you think is represented by the black community? And most of my friends have said any place from 30 to 75%. Wow. Okay? Now, the actual number, I believe, is closer to 13, 13.7, 13.8. Maybe let's round it up, 14%. Well, if you take 14% of 330 million, now I'm going to do some quick University of Tennessee math. 10% of that would be 30 million. Let's take it up to 15%, 45 million. Faster than I could do it, and I went to Seton Hall. So. 45 million, give or take a million, but who's counting, right? Mm-hmm. 45 million people in the United States are black folks, all right? Mm-hmm. Now, we're at the stroke of a pen or at the banging of a gavel with these idiots in Congress. Yep. We're going to allow about that same number of people into the country. And I'd like to know what my black friends think about that. That's another thing we can bring up with K. Carl. I'm sure he has a good answer for that one. And his work is just amazing, and I can't wait to talk with him. You were talking about the CBO, 75%, according to the Congressional Budget Office, 75% of illegal immigrants will continue to be illegal after the bill is signed into law anyhow. So I ask you, what is the point? And it will only reduce the number of visas by about 25%. This is unbelievable. It's a joke. I'm telling you, it is based on two principles and objectives. Number one, increase the Democrat voter base. And number two, stick money in the pension plan of SEIU that dumped and robbed from its pension to fund Obama and a ton of Democrats in 2008 and again in 2010 and again in 2012. And the SEIU's pension is, while maybe not bankrupt, it's extremely close to being that way. Their numbers were dwindling. Yeah. Big time. And so they need more union members. Which is another reason lovely Andy Stern was visiting the White House so often. Yeah, that's true. But that's another story. I just want to know what John McCain and Lindsey Graham are thinking, and especially Marco Rubio. I don't see any difference. Marco Rubio has just totally gone out the window as far as any kind of presidential candidate, in my humble opinion.
Yep.
And what you're doing, I really wish these Gang of Eight guys, of which this guy Menendez, from New Jersey, who, what did he have? Underage prostitutes, and now he's got another sex scandal, swirling around him.
I believe he was hanging out of country with someone.
Yeah, but the point is, he's still in Congress too. And then you got Berlusconi in Italy going to jail for having sex with an underage prostitute.
Well, then you've got Weiner erecting his campaign.
Well, stop.
No, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is.
He's driving a hard bargain. You got to have balls to do what Weiner's doing.
Among other things, yes. Oh, man, you just can't make this stuff up. How
long is it going to continue?
He's thrust into the lead, too. Oh, man, I just can't. You just can't make this stuff up. You just can't. But I want to know what the Gang of Eight, the Republicans, at least the rhinos in this Gang of Eight, are thinking. There was some report that I heard that said if Mitt Romney had gotten 70% of the Hispanic vote, he still would have lost. Okay? Hispanics right now are not thinking, I'm going to vote Republican. They're just not. And all
what are they
you're
thinking?
doing, they're going to vote Democrat. That's another reason why they want this immigration thing pushed through. So what is going to happen here to the this is a death knell for the Republican Party, which truthfully they're only bringing on themselves because they're rhinos. They're Republicans in name only. So what's happening is because, and even the rhinos are attacking the Tea Partiers. So by people like Rubio and Lindsey Graham and John McCain pushing this thing, which is just an absolute joke and absolutely not needed, and it's 1,200 pages and nobody's read it. Does that sound familiar? What do we have to do?
Yeah, these guys
are
even admitting that they haven't read it. Like the first time around with Obamacare wasn't. By the way, we've got a listener that has shot me a text message. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to say his name. But his initials are Mark Rowe. And let's see what he said here about you.
Uh-oh.
Donna is a pirate.
I am.
A Seton Hall pirate.
Yeah, I am. That's me.
But you got to remember
Seton Hall really stinks.
That Mark Rowe is from the
now.
Lovely city of Boston, Massachusetts.
That's
where you
true.
park your car in the yard.
Park your car at Harvard Yard. When I worked with Howard Stern, and when he was married to his first wife, he used to say, I hated when my in-laws came because they were from Massachusetts. Howard, go move the car. It was a big thing. So did he go to Boston College? I forget. Where did Mark Rowe go to?
I believe he went to
Somewhere
college
up
in
there.
Florida so that he could golf because he's a professional golfer.
Oh, okay. But he's probably...
When he's not the owner of Adnormous Graphics, one of our sponsors.
Yes, this is true. But yeah, I went to Seton Hall when it actually had an athletic program. Now it's pretty dismal. Doesn't even have a football team.
I wonder if Weiner's going to get rubbed out.
Should we go to commercial break and bring on the guests? Because I think we're totally losing control here. We didn't even get to Putin basically smacking down Obama over the Snowden thing. I'm going to leave you with this thought. Who actually has done more damage to the United States, Edward Snowden or Barack Obama? Okay. Your hand is raised, Mr. Neuen?
Barack Obama.
Okay, thank you. At least in our humble opinion, if you want the American free market economy to continue, if you're a progressive, a socialist, or even a communist, you would think otherwise. And I leave you
what if you're a
with
wiener
thought on that one. Will you stop? He's a socialist, but that's besides the point. All right, we're going to be back with K. Carl Smith.
I wonder if anybody ever looks at Wiener's buns.
Will you stop? Oh, he was a slime bucket when I worked in New York. He's still a slime bucket. I'm sorry. But that's besides the point. And the only bigger one is Charles Schumer. Absolute slime bucket.
We need to let you guys know about something.
Uh-oh.
And that is that up to this point, Donna and I have been doing this show by ourselves, slaving away, wearing a number of hats, sometimes making errors.
Mm-hmm.
Some might call that a boner.
Only when
while
Anthony
we're on the
Weiner's
topic
being
of
talked
wiener.
about. Oh my God!
I am so grateful that we don't have to answer to the FCC. At any rate, we want to introduce somebody that at this time does not have a microphone. And we won't refer to him as Mr. Producer, like Mark Levin, or Mr. Call Screener. But this is not only a dear friend of ours, but he's a blood relative of mine. He's my first cousin, and we now have manning the, I would say, the production side of this, the engineering side of it. David Griffith. I call him Dave.
Yell hi, Dave.
You're going to have
so
to
we
speak
can
up a
hear
little
you.
louder than that. Say hello.
Harry, he's shy.
Okay. He's not shy. At any rate,
We've totally lost control here.
now it allows me to sit around and think of things that go with wieners.
Stop.
Because I don't have to be worrying about dealing with all this technology, and I can sit back and be Mr. Funny. So now, are you wanting to go to break right now? Or do you want me to continue with the wiener analogies?
No, I think we need to go to a break.
Because I can go to this at length.
Yeah, I know you can, apparently. Very lengthy.
Oh, balls, said the queen. If I had to, I'd be king. I have no idea where that just came from.
Oh, my gosh. Yes,
No
I
idea
think we need to go
whatsoever.
to a break here because this is the first time I've totally lost control of this show since we started doing it.
Well,
But,
you
hey,
wanna
once
know
in a
why?
while, it's therapeutic.
Do you wanna know
You have
why?
to laugh once in a while because this is unbelievably scary stuff. Why?
By the way, Mark Rowe went to Rollins College,
Rollins, okay.
where
the
he
hell is
played
that?
on a full golf scholarship,
Is that
I believe.
Florida?
I think so.
Okay.
Here's why you've lost control of this show.
Because of Anthony Weiner.
Wiener's back. Wiener's got your back.
No, and your front.
because I knew on the way home that I was going to sit here and be silent for the first 15 minutes of this show because you were so pissed off at what was going. I can say that.
I really think my blood pressure went up today.
I'm telling you guys,
this is unbelievable what is happening to our country between the immigration thing, this carbon tax thing, Obamacare starting to kick in. Who cares what Edward Snowden did? Thank God he kind of woke everybody up. Now, the fact that he's running away to Russia to do that, okay, that might be something that needs to be, sussed out in the future. But what he's done is wake everybody up to the fact that the government is spying on us, okay? The IRS is spying on us. The government is trying to seriously curb the mainstream media and how it reports. And it is violating the Constitution. This administration is in so many ways, shapes, and forms. It's just not funny. And I do this because I love it, okay? And I did it for a living for an awful lot of time. And it's still very hard for me to keep track of all these scandals. I can't imagine what you, Joe American and Janet American out there are trying to do to make ends meet and take your kids to, basketball or football or soccer or piano lessons or whatever and make dinner and try to figure out whether Kim Kardashian's having her baby or not. I mean, it's just, it is priorities here that I am used to looking at and watching all the time. And it's hard for me to keep in track of all this. I can't imagine what is going on out there in America at this point, especially now with this carbon tax. Essentially, is what he's doing by putting all of the coal industry basically out of business. It's cutting down 32%, almost half of the energy we get in this country, folks. I don't care whether you believe in global warming or not. It's not something that can be done overnight, and it's going to result in the loss of at least 500,000 jobs. We already have record high unemployment. And with that, I'm going to get off my soapbox.
Well, I can't wait to see how they spin the numbers when this starts happening.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
they'll do something.
They will.
Yeah, I know.
I'm positive they will. When we get back, we hope to have K. Carl Smith with us to talk about Frederick Douglass Republicans.
You're listening to Cowboy Logic Radio, the official radio show of StandUpAmericaUS.org.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.
Okay, so we know you don't necessarily want to talk to Don Neuen, but we know you want to talk to Donna Fiducia, and you can. Call 917-675-3200, and you'll get to talk to Donna Fiducia, and Don Neuen will sit there and wait patiently.
Hello, my name is Scott Winchell. I'm the National Editor-in-Chief at StandUpAmericaUS.org, and I listen to Cowboy Logic, and I hope you do too.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. Their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance, yes. When cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing blade, yes. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Don Neuen, co-host of Cowboy Logic Radio, wears Bailey hats exclusively from the Cowboy Shop, and so can you. Visit thecowboyshoponline.com or call them at 888-854-6913. That's 888-854-6913.
And another day of
It doesn't matter if you live in Georgia, the U.S., or for that matter, anywhere in the world. The Cowboy Shop will deliver right to your door. Visit the Cowboy Shop for clothing, boots, hats, home decor, saddles, and horse gear. Even children's clothing, anything cowboy, you'll find it at thecowboyshoponline.com or call them at 888-854-6913. The Cowboy Shop, for the little cowboy in all of us. Yay!
This is Jennifer Uriosti from Wellington, Florida. I make my living riding horses professionally. When I'm on the professional circuit, I don't have time for the politically correct mainstream media. What I do make time for is Cowboy Logic Radio, and I hope you do too.
Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. Government is the problem. Government is the problem. Government is the problem.
You're listening to Cowboy Logic Radio.
We interrupt this broadcast to take you live to a press conference by General Warren Boutwell, in which he is expected to announce that he is a candidate for the presidency of the United States.
I wonder if he'll run as a Democrat or an independent.
Never know. Might be a Republican.
Yeah. Please. What kind of self-respecting black man will run as a Republican? Name one thing the Republican Party has done for black people. One!
Well, they were the party of Lincoln. They stood against the tyranny of oppression by leading the call for the Civil War and forced passage of the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed the slaves.
I named two things lately.
I don't call myself a black conservative. I am a Frederick Douglass Republican. I don't use the word conservative. If I do use it, I make sure I explain the word and the meaning of the word first. But here's why the word conservative has a negative connotation in the black community. You have to remember that back in the 1950s and 60s, it was conservative Democrats who did everything they could do to block civil rights legislation. That's why it's important that we need to elevate the life of Frederick Douglass. He gave clarity to the 3/5 clause. He talked about the Constitution, that the word slavery is not even in the Constitution. And Douglass respected and admired the Constitution. He said the Constitution is a document that is going to be used for our emancipation. The Constitution says we the people, not we the white people, Douglass said. And if black folks are people, we're included in that. The whole notion of racial hatred and race baiting is perpetuated because freedom's always under attack. This is just a technique to make sure we're separated, that we don't come together. Because if we do come together on one common accord, we'll turn this country around and we'll go back to godly principles and we'll live, the country might be much better off. They don't teach Douglass. That's why they don't teach him. They want to keep this alive, keep us ignorant. And so you're right. The Constitution is a perfect document, I think, the way it was written, because Douglass said that. And Douglass talked about it. So this whole notion that all this racial hatred, this race baiting, it's all an effort to help diminish our God-given right for self-rule and keep us apart. And that's going to end with this movement. I think the biggest challenge facing the conservative movement is their inability to engage at the local level. How to beat the propaganda war, how to win that, how to trump the race card. That's what this Frederick Douglass Republican philosophy is all about. It trumps the race card. The values that I express when I go speak as a Frederick Douglass Republican are the same values that's expressed by the Tea Party movement. You just can't play the race card on me. So race comes off the table. So what we have to do, and what we're doing in our organization, we're traveling around the country and we're teaching conservatives how to create an atmosphere for political dialogue without being accused of racism. Then I ask you, do you respect the Constitution? Do you respect life? Do you believe in limited government, meaning that you like to keep more of the money that you make? Do you believe in the biblical concept that if you don't work, you shouldn't eat in terms of personal responsibility? Then you're a Frederick Douglass Republican.
I believe that what most people want in their lives is what the Conservative Party wants to have for them. I believe that our policies are fundamentally common sense policies. Just let's take taxation for an example. Wherever I go, I hear enormous resentment about the amount which people are paying out of their own pay packet in tax. And this goes right across the income ranges. Socialism started by saying it was going to tax the rich. Very rapidly it was taxing the middle income groups. Now it's taxing people quite highly with incomes way below average and pensioners with incomes way below average. You can't, if you're trying to control inflation, go on putting public expenditure up and up beyond the taxpayer's capacity to pay, because that's a factor which will lead to inflation. Liberty is fundamental. Liberty, human dignity, a higher standard of living is fundamental. And steadily, I think, people are beginning to realize that you don't have those things unless you have a pretty large private enterprise sector. Any Iron Curtain country has neither liberty nor a very high standard of living.
You're listening to Cowboy Logic Radio, the official radio show of StandUpAmericaUS.org.
Do me a favor. Could you say senator instead of ma'am?
I love these members that get up and say, read the bill.
What difference at this point does it make?
The whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
We know that the free market is nonsense.
This liberal will be all about socializing, will be about basically taking over and the government running all of your companies.
The time has come for unfiltered, politically incorrect common sense. Welcome to the wild world of Cowboy Logic.
And welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio. I'm Donna Fiducia, along with the out-of-control Don Neuen. We've reined him in for a moment. No pun intended with all the horses we have around this ranch, but I think I needed to just catch my breath. Seriously, after watching Obama today give this speech, I really do believe my blood pressure went up 100 points. But we have somebody here who's going to try to just kind of rein me in a little bit and give me a break here, because I'm absolutely going nuts today with all the news just flying in and out of my head. Kate Carl Smith, we want to welcome you to Cowboy Logic Radio and, of course, our partner, StandUpAmericaUS.org. Kate Carl, let me just give you a quick introduction here. In October of 2009, you resigned from your motivational speaking career and you rededicated yourself to defending liberty. You are a former U.S. Army officer, and this is certainly challenging for you, I'm sure, sir, becoming a political agitator and informer, as I would like to put it, and also the founding servant leader of the Conservative Messenger and founder of the Frederick Douglass Republicans. K. Carl Smith, thank you so much for joining us here on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Thank you, Don, for the opportunity to be on your show. It's been a hectic day here in Florida, but I'm thankful that I had a chance to call in and be part of this.
Yeah, I know you're traveling, and we do thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us. Can you tell us just a little bit about what the Frederick Douglass Republicans are?
The Frederick Douglass Republican is an all-inclusive political platform and political movement where we are people who embrace the life empowering values of Frederick Douglass, which are, number one, respect for the Constitution, number two, respect for life. We believe in limited government, and we believe in personal responsibility. So we are not supporters of the status quo Republican Party. Let me put that out there first. We are anti-establishment Republican Party. We want to help the Republican Party recapture its political distinction and get it back to where it was at the time of Douglas and Lincoln, when it was a defender of the Constitution, and it made the plight of the poor and the working poor a legislative priority. not in terms of entitlement for a lifetime for the poor, but help the poor to become employees and entrepreneurs. And that way, once the poor is elevated, everyone else is elevated. And this nanny state solution is not the answer we're looking for. We're looking about liberty. We want to embrace capitalism.
But you have such a huge mountain in front of you because, in my opinion, the public education system is failing all of America's children.
You're exactly right. The key to our philosophy and how we take the conservative values and we share it in a way where it resonates with people, we do that through the life and the writings of Frederick Douglass, the quintessential constitutional conservative and self-proclaimed Republican. Frederick Douglass is the key on how to share this whole thing we call liberty with all Americans. And because of the poor education system that we do have, many folks don't know the substance of Douglass. But once we start sharing the message of Douglass and how Douglass embraced the Founding Fathers, he respected the Constitution, then people, especially the younger generation, they start understanding what liberty is all about and why liberty is worth fighting for.
But it's so hard because human nature is such that, if somebody gets something for free, it's going to be very hard to stop that and to change their way of thinking where they can get more, become more self-reliant, have a higher standard of living if they just try to work a little bit harder. And we don't realize growing up in this country, this is one of the few countries in the world that allows you that upwardly mobile capability.
Well, this is why Frederick Douglass was so important. Frederick Douglass was a slave for the first 20 years of his life. And think about it. The slave master was taking care of his clothing, was providing food, providing shelter. And I guess Governor Romney would say that Frederick Douglass was a 47%er getting his free stuff. But Douglass escapes from that. He escapes from slavery. He escaped from somebody taking care of him. And he pursued his liberty because he wanted life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness. And when you look at Douglass's life, here's a man that was a 47%er, and because he discovered his God-given gifts and talents and became an entrepreneur, Douglass ended his life as a 1%er. This man had $300,000 in the bank at the time of his death, which is equivalent of more than $10 million today. So Douglass' life is the example that we must show people that don't be happy with the mediocre existence of having the government to provide for you, but to take your God-given gifts and talents and turn your obsession to a profession. And Douglass is key to that because with Douglass, when people look at Douglass's life, they realize that they cannot out-victimize him. Therefore, they get off their duff and they get busy and want to improve the quality of life of themselves and their families. Douglass is the key to saving this nation.
How do you relate to young blacks when you go into schools or wherever where you talk to them? How do you relate to this? Because they've grown up an entire lifetime having no idea about Frederick Douglass and no idea how the Republican Party really was the party of emancipation.
The key to getting people to relate to Douglass, first, you must have a message that's not confrontational and that is not condescending. And in a way of delivering a message that's in love, you start sharing the Douglass message of personal responsibility, the Douglass message of how he understood that reading and writing was his key to victory and freedom in his life. When you start sharing that message with people, young people, it resonates with them because ghetto life or urban life is not worse than slavery life. While our youth today, in some cases, they're born into poverty, Frederick Douglass was born below poverty, meaning that he was born into slavery and did not own his own body. So, again, since they know and realize they cannot out-victimize Douglass, then they become interested in, hey, what's the system for success? Because success is not a secret. Success is a system. And they start emulating the life of Douglass.
What kind of challenge am I going to have if I bring up to one of my black friends the angle of Frederick Douglass? You know, what I'm concerned about is hearing, hey, man, your ancestors weren't slaves. You're a white guy. what are you talking about Frederick Douglass for?
Well, here's the thing. What he's trying to say to you, that you cannot empathize him because you're not black. And the way you respond to that, and the way I respond to it, I'm a Christian, and I would say, hey, I wasn't there at the time of the crucifixion, but I do know something about it. And so what has to happen is the way of how you present yourself to him. Here's one thing that we cover in our workshop that we do. We teach conservatives how to engage. And the best way I can explain it is this. I am a conservative, but that is not how I define myself politically. Because we're losing the propaganda battle, the word conservative has a negative connotation. It is synonymous with the word racist. So if you're out there engaging and you call yourself a Christian conservative or a black conservative or a Reagan conservative, you might as well call yourself a black racist, a Christian racist, or a Reagan racist, because we're losing the propaganda battle, and people think that when you say the word conservative, that you are a Bull Connor type conservative and not a Frederick Douglass type conservative. See, a Bull Connor type conservative, he was all about securing the doctrine of his racist fathers. A Frederick Douglass type conservative, we're all about securing the philosophies of the founding fathers who wrote the Declaration and the Constitution, not a Bull Connor conservative, the racist conservatives who wrote the Jim Crow laws and black codes. So you got to make sure people understand that you're not a Bull Connor type conservative, because if they perceive you as being a Bull Connor conservative, the wall goes up and they never receive the information you have to share with them. So in lieu of that, I refer to myself, and we teach people this Frederick Douglass Republican methodology. I am a Frederick Douglass Republican.
How do you battle, or how do I battle as a white guy, the founding fathers stigma that I get a lot, which is, the founding fathers owned slaves?
Here's how you deal with that. And I'm going to start off by saying it this way. The political insights of Frederick Douglass is more important than the political insights of the founding fathers. Let me repeat that again so you don't think I said something differently. The political insights of Frederick Douglass is more important than the political insights of the founding fathers. Here's what I mean by that. The founding fathers gave us a magnificent document. I'm talking about the Constitution. But in doing that, some of the founding fathers did own slaves. And when they signed the Constitution, they did not free their slaves immediately. Many of them freed their slaves after they died. So their view of liberty is tainted. Douglass did not own any slaves. Douglass was a slave, but in his writings, he affirms the founding fathers, and Douglass affirms the Constitution. That's why Douglass is key.
Is that
he
what
affirms the founding fathers and the Constitution in Douglass's writing and in his speeches. So that trumps that argument from the left.
See, that's interesting, too, because, I have no idea how to battle that. What is your take on Herman Cain? I mean, I love Herman Cain. I really wanted him to succeed. Why do you think, besides the fact that Chicago-style politics found dirt that really was non-existent on him, in my opinion, why is it so hard for somebody as successful as Herman Cain to not be able to motivate young black youths to opening their eyes a little bit, at least to the Republican Party? Not necessarily to go over there, but to at least try to open their eyes and their minds a bit.
It goes back to the point I made earlier that the word conservative has a negative connotation. Mm-hmm. So when you refer to yourself as a black conservative, you have already been discredited. So therefore, when you try to deliver your message falls on deaf ears, because who wants to listen to a black racist?
See, I never once heard Herman Cain say anything about Frederick Douglass.
No, I didn't either.
And that's a huge mistake. Because let me give an example. I was recently asked to be a keynote speaker at the at-large conference in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And as part of being a keynote speaker, I was asked to present the Frederick Douglass Award to a local politician. That person was Senator Elbert Guillory. And I said, wait a minute, I'm not going to give out the Douglas Award unless I know something about this recipient. I said, give me Senator Guillory's phone number so I can talk to him. So 3 months prior to the award, that ceremony, I called Senator Guillory, found out about his voting record, and found out as a Democrat, he voted very conservatively. And then he said, K. Carl, I'm going to use this conference as a platform to switch parties. He said, I've been struggling with this thing for 3 years about switching parties. And I said to him, how are you going to do it? He said, well, that's my concern. He said, I know when I come out and say I'm Republican, I'm going to lose my constituency. And so I started mentoring to Senator Guillory. I started sharing with him this Frederick Douglass Republican methodology approach. And I told him, you got to embrace Douglass because you got to help people understand that you're not a typical Republican. You're a different type of Republican, and that you are a Frederick Douglass type Republican. And that's what he did. So therefore, when he came out, you see he embraced Douglass. That's the key. Mm-hmm. Because in order to attack what he's doing, he's letting people know that his political values are in lockstep with a Frederick Douglass. So in order to attack Senator Guillory, they got to come through Douglass first to get to him. But if you're going to attack Douglass, then you find out who the true racists and sellouts are.
And that video has gone viral now.
Yeah, I want to make a point about that video and about State Senator Guillory. The research that I've done on Guillory, as well as on you, I'm gonna voice an opinion here, and you may or may not agree with me on it, but I believe that you're the man behind Senator Guillory. That I believe that you built a large part of his foundation that right now is going viral on YouTube.
Let me be more specific than that. Senator Guillory has been a conservative for a long time. He is conservative at heart. What my mentoring helped him to do, it gave him the courage to come out and switch parties. Because he had been contemplating about doing it for the past 3 years. So by sharing the Frederick Douglass Republican methodology with him, they gave him the courage to come out and use Douglass as his shield by cloaking himself in Douglass, which helped him to come out. So I did not convert Senator Guillory to conservatism. He's always been one. But our message of Frederick Douglass Republican inspired him to use Douglass and to cloak himself in Douglass. That helped softens the blow or eliminates the attacks from the left. And one thing about when Senator Guillory came out, I think last week, he received a call from the Black Caucus in Louisiana, not to attack him, but to embrace him and welcoming him to their organization. That's the power of this message, of this Frederick Douglass message.
Have you heard any repercussions from the Obama administration on Senator Guillory's decision to label himself as a Frederick Douglass Republican?
I have not. As a matter of fact, as we're speaking, the current chairman for the Democrat Party for the state of Louisiana has not issued any press release or statement attacking Guillory. And it'd be crazy to do so. Again, to attack Guillory is to attack Douglass, because Guillory has cloaked himself in Douglass.
So what are they hoping? He'll just fizzle out?
No, they don't know what to do. That's the point. They have no idea what to do. They want to attack because that's the mode of operation of the left, is to attack, just like they did Herman Cain. But since Herman Cain did not use Douglass, he just came out as a black conservative, the attack was on. But they'd be very foolish to attack a person that embraces himself with Frederick Douglass, because you really find out who the true sellouts are and who the true racists are. And the liberals don't know what to do with this whole thing about Frederick Douglass methodology.
What if a white conservative politician, a white Republican, were to aggressively and publicly embrace Douglass? Do you feel that would be something that would be scrutinized pretty heavily by the black community, or do you think that would be something that would be embraced by the black community?
What has to happen, any person, I don't care if you're black or white, if you're going to embrace Douglass and say that you align yourself with the philosophy of Douglass, you must carefully study and show yourself approved. You cannot be an empty suitor just saying you believe with the values of Douglas just to get votes. You got to spend some time studying, understanding Douglas philosophy, and because you will be attacked, the left will attack you because the left wants to paint the picture all years using Douglas to get black votes. But that's why the individual person must go take the time, take the effort, and really become sold out to the Frederick Douglass Republican methodology, because you're going to be attacked. But the thing is this: never ever let anybody write your testimony. The left has no idea how the God you serve touches your heart and inspires you every day. Never let anybody write your testimony, how God put impressions on your spirit. And don't let anybody say that you're falling because you embrace Douglas, because that's what they want to do. They want to separate you from that, because when they separate you from Douglas, then that's when they know they can attack and be successful. But when you don't separate yourself from Douglas and you don't allow it to happen, they're very fearful about attacking.
What has the NAACP thought about this? Have you had any contact with them?
I mean, I have not personally, but I do know this. I know a top-level executive of the NAACP read my book, and through various people, it came back to me what this top executive person of the NAACP said, and the person said this. This was back in 2011. If the message that's in my book gets on a national level, Democratic Party is toast and Obama is history. That's the power of this message. And
that's
I want to make
powerful.
one comment. I want to make one comment, Don. I forgot to mention this. You asked me about how about a white person embracing this message. Here's what I've learned over the 4 years of delivering this message. When I say, as a black American, that I'm a Frederick Douglass Republican and my values are lockstep with Douglas, that's a powerful statement. But when someone that's not a black American says that their values are in lockstep with a Frederick Douglass, it is even more powerful. Because through the media, all we hear that white conservatives are racist, they hate the poor, that white conservatives have no redemptive value at all. So, and you got a white conservative saying that my values are in lockstep with Douglas, that is powerful because it falls in direct opposition to the propaganda people are hearing. And you got a white person embracing and lifting the name of Douglas.
Yeah, but they truly have to be a student of Douglas. I think it's very important that we reiterate the fact that you come off as a phoney or a halfway.
Yes, exactly right.
You're gonna get burnt.
That's right. And you don't have to become a student of Douglas like I had to do. I mean, where I read everything that I could possibly get my hands on Douglas. The collective of writings that was put together by Philip Faulkner, about 900 pages of Douglas writings. The 1,000-page book of Douglas writings, separate now from Faulkner's book of Douglas writing about 1,000 pages. They don't have to go through that laborious process. I kind of simplified the matter and wrote a book. All I got to do, Don and Donna, is get a copy of my book and read it.
I definitely want a copy. You better autograph it, too.
I will.
What kind of reaction do you get when you talk to any people in your workshops, especially though young blacks that might be looking for some sort of direction? What kind of reaction do they give you?
It's a breath of fresh air when they hear the story and the life of Douglas, a man who was born below poverty, a man who began life at the lowest and ended life at the highest, a man who never been to school in his life, wrote 3 books, a man who was homeschooled, self-taught, learned how to read and write while on the plantation, a man who escaped from slavery at the age of 20, was an advisor to 5 U.S. presidents. 5 U.S. presidents. A man who was a slave for the first 20 of his life, no formal schooling, who ends up having $300,000 in savings, which is the equivalent of more than $10 million today. That is an inspirational story. So when they see Douglas' life and you elevate Douglas' legacy and you show this to them, they become curious to know what was his action plan for success. What are the things that Douglas valued that led to that type of success? Because, again, success is not a secret. Success is a system. So Douglas touches and resonates with young people of every ethnic group. Douglas resonates with black Americans because Frederick Douglass is the grandfather of the civil rights movement. Dr. King is the father of the civil rights movement, and Dr. King got a lot of his ideas and strategies from the writings of Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass resonates with the Latino community because Douglass supported Chinese immigration back in 1868. He supported legal immigration of the Chinese when they came to work on the railroad. Douglass resonates with women. The first ever women's rights convention was held in Seneca Falls, New York, back in 1848. Susan B. Anthony was there. Elizabeth Cady Stanton was there. 200 women were there. 32 men were there. Only one man was invited to speak. That was Frederick Douglass. And Frederick Douglass resonates with conservatives. The values that we believe in as conservatives. Douglass not only wrote about those values, respect for the Constitution, the respect for life, the belief in limited government, and belief in personal responsibility, Douglass lived those values. Those values elevated his quality of life from being a 47%er to a 1%er, and to be concerned about the poor and the working poor.
What
Douglass
are some other...
is the answer, I would say, this nation.
You know, one of the things that I saw on your website, and forgive me that I don't have that screen in front of me, so I need you to give out your website for everybody, but one of the things that I noticed on there that I thought was real cool was the Frederick Douglass facts and information about. And as you were spinning those off a minute ago, I was getting pumped up just hearing you talk about these one-liner facts that you were throwing at me. First thing I'd like to ask is, would you mind throwing a few more of those my way? Secondly, would you give everybody your website? And the next thing that I'd like to ask is, would you mind hitting those 4 points that determine whether someone is a Frederick Douglass Republican?
Well, let me do that last one first. To be a Frederick Douglass Republican is not based on color. It's not based on a person's ethnicity. It's based on the 4 life empowering values of Frederick Douglass. And those 4 life empowering values are respect for the U.S. Constitution. Number 2, respect for life. Number 3, the belief in limited government. And number 4, the belief in personal responsibility. Those are the 4 core life empowering values of Frederick Douglass. The website is FrederickDouglassRepublican.com. That's Frederick Douglass. Douglass spelled his last name with 2 S's. Republican, no S on Republican.com or .org. Some of the facts that's on that website, for example, and this is important because a lot of people don't know the history of both political parties. I did not know it at one point in time. For example, a lot of people don't know that in the 1850s, the Fugitive Slave Law was passed by the Democrat Party. The Fugitive Slave Law, that the Democrat Party supported slavery, and they supported the slave master. A lot of people, I did not know that. I always believed that. I was told that the Democrat Party has always championed civil rights. Well, that's not true. An example, that the KKK was started by the Democrat Party. I think it was back in 1865. The KKK started the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party started the KKK for the sole purpose of suppressing the black vote so they would not vote Republican.
That was something I hit. My bad.
I'm sorry?
Sorry about that. Donna was hitting buttons on her computer accidentally.
It was your website, actually, and the music went on, and I don't know if you heard it, but I heard it. We all heard it. Woke us up.
No, it didn't wake me up, interrupted me, but I was listening intently. May I interrupt you for one thing when we're talking about the kind of the chronological history of bigotry? One of my arguments to liberals is always the fact that, you know, they champion Lyndon B. Johnson as this god of civil rights.
Oh.
Okay?
Hideous human being.
And you and I talked about this the other night, in which he was anything but that. He was the opposite of that. And during his term as a senator, or his terms as a senator, he voted against every civil rights bill. Mm-hmm. And then when he got into the office of president, he basically came right out, and I'm paraphrasing this, and just said, you know what? I'm going to, this administration will ensure that blacks never vote Republican again, and we're going to do it through entitlements. And he didn't use those generous words and kind words that I just used. But it's amazing to me, especially the number of white liberals that'll debate me about how great of a civil rights guy Lyndon B. Johnson was, when I know for a fact that he was anything but that.
My experience has been that the most racist people I've ever dealt with in my life, and I grew up in Alabama. I grew up in a Democrat household. White liberals are the biggest racists I've ever experienced, ever witnessed in my life. And they do not tell the truth about the party that they represent. You are exactly right. Those are the people that were telling me this stuff when I grew up as a young boy, that LBJ, the Kennedys were all champions of civil rights. When you go back and read for yourself and become a critical thinker, you found out that's not the case. When I first got this conservative utterance and realized I was conservative, I actually went through 3 days of depression, because all the things I believed to be true, I found it was a lie. I thought the KKK was started by the Republican Party. Of course, it was started by Democrats. I thought George Wallace was a Republican. Of course, he was a Democrat. Bull Connor, I thought he was Republican. Of course, he was a Democrat. I thought the people who bombed 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, were Republicans. Of course, they're all Democrats. So the lies of the left, I fell for. And not only that, and I think I may have pointed this out earlier, that I need to do it now. If you go to the Democrat Party's website right now and go to the DNC website, I think it's democrats.org, and on the top menu it has About. Then when that opens up, it has Our History. The first sentence on their website, as it is today, reads, "For more than 200 years, we have led the fight for civil rights." That's a bold-faced lie.
It's absolutely a lie.
And 200 years ago was 1813. Slavery was alive and well back then. The Democrat Party supported slavery. Douglas wrote an essay at one time called The Slavery Party. He wrote it in the 1850s. Douglas said on one occasion, the best representation of slavery in politics is the Democrat Party. My point is this. Thank God we have a literary legacy of the writings of Frederick Douglass to refute the propaganda and lies on the left. LBJ is not the best thing to happen to black Americans.
He's one of the worst things.
Yeah. How about Robert Byrd? I remember when he was alive watching videos of him going, this guy's in the KKK. He can say anything he wants and he gets a free pass. It's unbelievable to me. Al Gore's father, when he was a senator, was one of the biggest roadblocks to any kind of equality legislation that was trying to be put through the Senate. And it's been totally hijacked by I find it so offensive. But you know what else also, K. Carl, is that to me, the word conservative has totally been lost with the Republican Party too. You know, whether you're black, white, or whatever, the Republican Party has basically lost me in a lot of stretches of the imagination. They need to start coming back to more core values. Maybe they shouldn't use the word conservative either. They should try to look at something like what Frederick Douglass is saying, because I believe right now the Republican Party is just Democrat light.
I agree with you. The problems with the party is our leadership at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And
there is none.
Yeah, the so-called leaders, what they're doing, they figure out the only way they can be effective and remain a viable political force is to compromise conservative principles, and that's not the answer. The problem is not with our philosophy or our message. The problem is with the method of delivering the message. We have a method that does not trump the race card, does not trump the class warfare attacks, so when we try to deliver the message, our message falls on deaf ears because we have already been discredited by the race card and the class warfare attacks. So they need to get smart and understand it's the method that we're lacking. And we need to find an approach where we can share the life-empowering message of the conservative philosophy, and we could do it in a way that trumps the race card, defeats the class warfare attacks. Then people will listen to us. The answer to do both of those things is Frederick Douglass.
Okay, Carl, I want you to go back. I want you to go back to those 4 points again. And I want the listeners to realize the ironic point that the United States, first, what they're considering to be a black president, stands for none of those four values. Not one.
Yeah. We
The
use
first
these
one.
we use these four life important values as a scorecard. The first one is respect for the U.S. Constitution.
Okay, let's stop right there. Clearly, Obama has zero respect for the Constitution.
Quite the opposite. He circumvents it in any way possible, in my opinion.
Number two,
Number two, respect for life.
clearly, he does not have a respect for life. Number three,
The belief in limited government.
clearly, the first black president of the United States does not believe in limited government. And number four,
And the last one, the belief in personal responsibility.
clearly, the first black president of the United States does not believe in personal responsibility. I would be, and I can't, I feel stupid saying, if I was a black guy, that's like saying if I knew what it felt like to be pregnant, I'd be offended. I would be offended. I would be disappointed. I would feel duped. And I'd feel shortchanged that the first black president of the United States stands for absolutely nothing that Frederick Douglass stood for.
And you're so accurate. What's going on, and I learned this from studying Douglass, what is happening, let me put it this way. I understand the historical significance of President Obama being the first person of color to occupy the highest office in the land. I understand that. I appreciate that, and I celebrate that. But here's what I learned from Frederick Douglass. Abraham Lincoln, his presidency was also a major historical event because he was the first Republican president to occupy the highest office in the land. Here's what I learned from Douglass. Douglass celebrated that Lincoln's presidency. But Douglass did not stay stuck in the celebratory mode. He started looking for political substance to critique Lincoln, to make sure he governed by the Constitution, and making sure his policies did not become vicious to the poor and the working poor. What has to happen, people need to understand how to critique Obama. And critique is a form of love. So I understand the celebration piece, but now we got to start looking for political substance. How does his policies align with the Constitution? How does it elevate the quality of life? How does it help the poor and the working poor? Obama's policies are vicious toward the poor. Case in point, he cut the historical black colleges by $72 million. Case in point, the DC Opportunity Scholarship Program that he eliminated. That's vicious to the poor, the working poor.
How about this new immigration bill?
It's going to be devastating to the infrastructure of this country, in particular to black employment and black unemployment.
I think it's one of the things that we were discussing earlier before you joined us was that, and you may find this to be interesting, and also may have found it that you get the same kind of an answer. I've asked a number of my black friends, what percentage of the U.S. population is black? And I get answers from 30% to 60 to 70%. Now, you got to remember that most of the people that I'm asking this question to were raised in urban inner city environments. When actually, and you probably will correct me on this, I want to say it's closer to 13.7%, 14%, someplace in that area.
I was going to say 13, yeah.
Okay. Now, the point that I brought up to some of my friends today was, think about this, guys. For 200 years, the black population struggled to become one with the rest of the United States, to become an equal. And they went through slavery. And I pointed out, and your grandparents and your parents, depending on their age, went through rough civil rights years. They bled and they died so that you guys would have the right to be an equal citizen in the United States. And at the drop of a pen or the banging of a gavel, this administration is going to bring in almost, if these numbers are right, 46 million, almost the same percentage of population, and grant these people not only the same rights that your forefathers bled and died for, but more. And you know what I get? A deer in the headlights look.
And what do they think is going to happen to poor or black workers who might not have higher skilled education and be able to do those higher skilled jobs? You're bringing in people who were here in the first place illegally. You're going to make them legal. You're going to tell everybody, well, look, we're not going to give them health care. We're not going to give them legal status. And you know, the second this immigration bill gets passed, they're going to say, well, they're here legally. Why can't we give them health care? Why can't we give them more food stamps? Why can't we, let them vote? You know, that's going to be the next thing. It's done in increments. And there's so much happening so fast. Like I was saying earlier, I mean, I do this for a living, and it's a hobby and it's a passion of mine. I can't imagine why somebody or how somebody out there is trying to put food on the table and pay their taxes and work hard and make ends meet, is going to know that this immigration bill is going to basically smack them down if they're on that edge. In fact, there was a story this week. 76% of working families, if they're lucky enough to have a job to begin with, live paycheck to paycheck. What do you think is going to happen to the people on the lower scale, that middle and lower class, when this immigration bill gets passed? And it's a double standard too, because not all the same employment situations are going to go for these illegal immigrants that are going to suddenly become legalized. It's actually going to be more advantageous for an employer to hire somebody who was here illegally that just got okay to stay here than somebody who was born here and grown up and went through the education system and is a true, a first generation, or not a first generation American.
Well, it's going to be another situation where, because of Obama health care and the burden of employers provide health care now, some of these folks who they're going to get employed, they're not going to get employed. Because these employers won't be able to hire them. Or if you get employed, you're going to take a low-paying job. And I don't believe this whole thing that Americans don't work. No, Americans not going to work for a job you're getting paid less than you can provide your family with. Get paid less than what it is on food stamps. And so it's this concern. So that's why we have to become more involved in the legislative process, and we got to get people, we got to elevate people from being superficial observers to become independent, critical thinkers, and get out of the celebration mode of having the first black president and start looking at his policies and help him to improve as a leader in statesman by critiquing him, and not just give him a pass just because of his color. That's not going to work.
Okay, Carl, want to know something. We've got some folks that are showing interest in calling in. Are you able to? I know you've had a long day. I know you've had a rough day at some points in it. Are you able to hang with us through a break and take a few calls?
Sure.
All right. Thank you, sir. We're going to be back with K. Carl Smith, founder of the Frederick Douglass Republicans, and we will take some calls when we get back.
917-675-3200 is the phone number for Cowboy Logic Radio. You're listening to Cowboy Logic Radio, the official radio show of StandUpAmericaUS.org.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.
Okay, so we know you don't necessarily want to talk to Don Neuen, but we know you want to talk to Donna Fiducia, and you can. Call 917-675-3200, and you'll get to talk to Donna Fiducia, and Don Neuen will sit there and wait patiently.
Hello, my name is Scott Winchell. I'm the National Editor-in-Chief at StandUpAmericaUS.org, and I listen to Cowboy Logic, and I hope you do too.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. Their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance, yes. When cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance, yes. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Don Neuen, co-host of Cowboy Logic Radio, wears Bailey hats exclusively from the Cowboy Shop, and so can you. Visit thecowboyshoponline.com or call them at 888-854-6913. That's 888-854-6913.
And another day of
It doesn't matter if you live in Georgia, the U.S., or for that matter, anywhere in the world. The Cowboy Shop will deliver right to your door. Visit the Cowboy Shop for clothing, boots, hats, home decor, saddles, and horse gear. Even children's clothing, anything cowboy, you'll find it at thecowboyshoponline.com or call them at 888-854-6913. The Cowboy Shop, for the little cowboy in all of us. Yay!
This is Jennifer Uriosti from Wellington, Florida. I make my living riding horses professionally. When I'm on the professional circuit, I don't have time for the politically correct mainstream media. What I do make time for is Cowboy Logic Radio, and I hope you do too.
Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. Government is the problem. Government is the problem. Government is the problem.
You're listening to Cowboy Logic Radio.
We interrupt this broadcast to take you live to a press conference by General Warren Boutwell, in which he is expected to announce that he is a candidate for the presidency of the United States.
I wonder if he'll run as a Democrat or an independent.
Never know. Might be a Republican.
Please. What kind of self-respecting black man will run as a Republican? Name one thing the Republican Party has done for black people. One!
Well, they were the party of Lincoln. They stood against the tyranny of oppression by leading the call for the Civil War and forced passage of the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed the slaves.
I named two things lately.
I don't call myself a black conservative. I am a Frederick Douglass Republican. I don't use the word conservative. If I do use it, I make sure I explain the word and the meaning of the word first. But here's why the word conservative has a negative connotation in the black community. You have to remember that back in the 1950s and 60s, it was conservative Democrats who did everything they could do to block civil rights legislation. That's why it's important that we need to elevate the life of Frederick Douglass. He gave clarity to the 3/5 clause. He talked about the Constitution, that the word slavery is not even in the Constitution. And Douglass respected and admired the Constitution. He said the Constitution is a document that is going to be used for our emancipation. The Constitution says we the people, not we the white people, Douglass said. And if black folks are people, we're included in that. The whole notion of racial hatred and race baiting is perpetuated because freedom's always under attack. This is just a technique to make sure we're separated, that we don't come together. Because if we do come together on one common accord, we'll turn this country around and we'll go back to godly principles and we'll live, the country might be much better off. They don't teach Douglass. That's why they don't teach him. They want to keep this alive, keep us ignorant. And so you're right. The Constitution is a perfect document. I think the way it was written, because Douglass said that, and Douglass talked about it. So this whole notion that all this racial hatred, this race baiting, it's all an effort to help diminish our God-given right for self-rule and keep us apart. And that's going to end with this movement. I think the biggest challenge facing the conservative movement is their inability to engage at the local level. How to beat the propaganda war, how to win that, how to trump the race card. That's what this Frederick Douglass Republican philosophy is all about. It trumps the race card. The values that I express when I go speak as a Frederick Douglass Republican are the same values that's expressed by the Tea Party movement. You just can't play the race card on me. So race comes off the table. So what we have to do, and what we're doing in our organization, we're traveling around the country and we're teaching conservatives how to create an atmosphere for political dialogue without being accused of racism. Then I ask you, do you respect the Constitution? Do you respect life? Do you believe in limited government, meaning that you like to keep more of the money that you make? Do you believe in the biblical concept that if you don't work, you shouldn't eat in terms of personal responsibility? Then you're a Frederick Douglass Republican.
I believe that what most people want in their lives is what the Conservative Party wants to have for them. I believe that our policies are fundamentally common sense policies. Just let's take taxation for an example. Wherever I go, I hear enormous resentment about the amount which people are paying out of their own pay packet in tax. And this goes right across the income ranges. Socialism started by saying it was going to tax the rich. Very rapidly it was taxing the middle income groups. Now it's taxing people quite highly with incomes way below average and pensioners with incomes way below average. You can't, if you're trying to control inflation, go on putting public expenditure up and up beyond the taxpayer's capacity to pay, because that's a factor which will lead to inflation. Liberty is fundamental. Liberty, human dignity, a higher standard of living is fundamental. And steadily, I think, people are beginning to realize that you don't have those things unless you have a pretty large private enterprise sector. Any Iron Curtain country has neither liberty nor a very high standard of living.
You're listening to Cowboy Logic Radio, the official radio show of StandUpAmericaUS.org.
Do me a favor. Could you say senator instead of ma'am?
I love these members that get up and say, read the bill.
What difference at this point does it make?
The whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
We know that the free market is nonsense.
This liberal will be all about socializing, will be about basically taking over and the government running all of your companies.
The time has come for unfiltered, politically incorrect common sense. Welcome to the wild world of Cowboy Logic.
We're back on Cowboy Logic Radio. I'm Donna Fiducia, along with Don Neuen. And our guest this evening is K. Carl Smith. He is a former U.S. Army officer, again, which is in itself enough in my book. But he is a motivational speaker right now. He resigned, actually, from a career as a motivational speaker to rededicate himself to defending liberty and trying to really enlighten people as to who Frederick Douglass was and how the Republican Party really can rebrand itself in the name of Frederick Douglass. And again, the website is Frederick Douglass, that's with 2 S's, Republican, singular.com. And K. Carl, we thank you again for being with us. It's really been enlightening to me because, I had heard of Frederick Douglass, but I really didn't know much about the message that he had.
That's because you went to a public school.
That's true.
You know what? This knowledge that I have of Frederick Douglass only came within the last 5 years. I was not taught Douglass in school at all. I knew he was a writer and wrote 3 books. Well, I knew at the time he wrote 1 book, but he's actually authored 3 autobiographies. So this knowledge of Douglass just came to my awareness by intense reading over the past 5 years.
Mm-hmm. We'd want to bring in a friend and colleague who's called in. His name is Stan Levy, and Stan lives out in California, the bastion of liberalness. It's got to drive him nuts. But Stan also, K. Carl, is a lover of the Constitution. And Stan Levy, say hello to K. Carl Smith.
Mr. Smith, how are you?
I'm doing great, Stan. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir.
Stan, do you have a question for K. Carl, something that you'd like to, possibly have him elaborate on?
Well, I have a thought as I was listening to some of what was said, and you guys started talking about the actual population, actual black population as a percentage of the total nation population. And the one thing that comes up to me, because you also were talking about the immigration bill, and I'm wondering, and I actually put this on my blog, but the thought to me is, if people really want to understand, in my mind, what the immigration bill is about, the Democratic Party is changing horses. They've ridden the black demographic about as far as they can ride them, and it's a shrinking demographic. And there's really nothing to be gained by continuing to deal with black folks. So they decide to hitch up on the next horse, which is a growing demographic, the Hispanic population, and they believe that this is how they believe that this immigration bill is how that's going to happen. And I guess the thing is, when are black people actually going to wake up and understand, one, you've been played, and two, you're no longer wanted?
You know, Stan, I think the way we do this and the way we wake up all Americans, again, is Frederick Douglass. Because all the things we're dealing with in this country today, I'm talking about immigration, this whole thing about the federal government becoming so powerful and centralized. Douglass wrote about these things in similar ways. For example, the slave master had power. Douglass had no rights. The federal government has power. We have diminishing rights. And Douglass talked about this inverse relationship between power and rights. It's always going on. And so Douglass is key to this whole thing because Douglass helped Lincoln to save a nation once before. I think it'll behoove us to understand the writings of Douglass and see what it would say to us today to reignite our passion for liberty, because if you're going to have a conversation about liberty, you got to bring Douglass into that conversation because he talks about it and writes about it, and people get that metaphor of slavery, and they understand what's going on. What's going on, Stan, and you are so right. I think Harriet Tubman said it best. She said on one occasion, I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed more only if they knew they were slaves. A lot of people don't realize they've been enslaved. And it's not just blacks. It's all American citizens.
It's really hard to get people off the government dole. People are made so comfortable now. I think they say that if you are on food stamps and you get your Obama phone and you get your welfare check, you're living equivalent to the person making close to $65,000 a year. That's unheard of. And then if you try to cut it down, well, you're insensitive. You're not trying to help the person.
You're racist.
You're racist. If you criticize Obama, and then you also have the situation where you seem insensitive because you want to increase, unemployment benefits to the point where people are on unemployment for so darn long that they've lost any skills or any chance they have of getting a fairly skilled job, and they have to settle for less. It's a vicious cycle that has to be broken.
And once again, the answer to show people that they're being enslaved, because they don't realize they're being enslaved, you got to bring Douglass in, because think about it. Douglass was being taken care of by the slave master. Douglass didn't have to worry about health care. He didn't have to worry about clothing. He was on the plantation. But Douglass, while on the system, learned how to read and write. He maximized educational opportunities, escaped from slave master-run health care, slave master entitlements, slave master welfare, and he discovered God gifts and talent. That's the story. That's the life that has to be elevated, because no one today can out-victimize Douglass, and that's the key.
Okay, Carl, what is your take on the Tea Party patriots and the Tea Party in general?
I support the Tea Party movement. When this whole thing started 5 years ago, I traveled to the state of Alabama. I went to every Tea Party meeting that I could attend because I wanted to find out firsthand, not through hearsay, if Tea Party activists were in fact racist. So here's a black man. I showed up at meetings and sat in the back. And what I learned was through my own personal observation that they pray to the same God that I pray to. They give allegiance to the flag that I served in the military. I said, different color, same values. So I learned that the media and how some politicians try to portray these Tea Party activists racist is not true. I learned that through my own personal experience. So to me, the Tea Party movement is a victim of the propaganda of the left, where they want to portray these Tea Party activists racist. That's not true. And here's the thing I learned. Racism has no political face. Is there racism in the Republican Party? Yes. Is there racism in the Democrat Party? Yes. There's racism within the NAACP. Because the biggest racists I have ever witnessed in my life are blacks and how blacks treat each other. So racism is here in this country, and it's not going away. What we have to do is, instead of insulting, instigating, and finger-pointing, we have to interact and impact and promote racial healing. So it's easy to point at someone and say they're racist. The question is, what are you doing to make a difference? That's what has to happen in this country. We need some problem solvers, not a bunch of instigators and finger-pointers.
Stan,
so I
do you
support the Tea Party movement.
Well, see, to me, and I don't know, Stan, if you agree with this. I know Kay Carl was saying how it's almost a no-no to say conservative. I almost think it's a no-no now for myself even to say Republican. I'm a Tea Party person. I'm more of an independent, I guess, if anything else, but I certainly agree much more with the Tea Party than I do with the leadership, at least, of the Republican Party.
I'm an American.
Yeah, that's true, too. I really almost think we need to make a third American party or something and put it into the name of a Frederick Douglass.
Well, and I don't have a problem with any of the thoughts being expressed, but it really comes back. I got to lean over there with Don. The problem is everybody has a lot more invested in labels than they have in ideas. The Constitution is an idea on paper for the last 230-some-odd years, 40-some-odd years, well, almost 40 years. And everybody talks around it as though it doesn't matter. And then everyone's looking to either have a label, and then we're all getting into groups, and no one's talking about ideas. I mean, when you get to the point where Congress is passing laws that are so large that no one can read them and no one can understand them, and you have people applauding this because their side seems, whoever they think is their side seems to be for it. We have a people who aren't thinking. There is no way on God's green that I need 1,200 pages to fix the immigration system. I got another problem. I don't even know why I need. If they won't enforce the current laws, please explain to me what laws you can pass in addition that are not going that are going to fix a problem when the problem is enforcement.
Yeah, the '86 immigration law was supposed to be this whole darn thing. The wall was never built. The borders are not being secured.
The borders are not being secured, and in that case, the more than 300%, 250% increase in illegal immigrants was not necessarily intentional. But I guarantee you that the Democrats who've been watching this have said, you know what, the easiest way to grow this demographic is to simply do what we did in '86. And the only difference I can see between 1986 law and what's going through right now in 2013 is there is less of a penalty to employers for hiring illegal aliens. That's about it. Apart from that, it looks like a carbon copy. And the CBO has already said you're going to come up with, you're going to go from 11 million to 46 million by 2033, and that this actually encourages illegal immigration.
Well, that's what I was talking about when I was discussing this with my friends earlier today, in which, 200 years, your ancestors bled and died for the rights of citizenship that you have. And in a matter of probably weeks,
a stroke of the pen, a pounding of the gavel, the almost, if not more, but almost the same number of people are going to be granted those same rights that your ancestors bled and died for. And it's a travesty, in my opinion, to the black population. And there's no assimilation here either. The HHS has a new hotline available in 150 different languages. So how are people going to assimilate? I mean, when my great-grandparents came over here, there was no safety net. They stayed with family. If you had a cold, you got sent back. You had to be healthy. You preferably had to be a professional of some sort, and that's actually what Canada does. They have higher skilled workers that they're accepting. So, if you ever hear the Canada, way of immigration, it's far superior to what we're doing here. And then again, you're not securing a border, and you're not making people assimilate at all. They don't want, there's no need for it. And it's only going to hurt the workers that are here.
Stan?
Yeah.
We've been talking the whole night about Frederick Douglass, and I don't know if K. Carl's aware of this. I don't know if we introed you with this when we brought you into the call here. But Stan has a blog that's called blackmanthinkin.com. And I'm curious, Stan, on what you've heard tonight that K. Carl's talking about, how often you discuss the for lack of a better word, the philosophy, the teaching, the beliefs of Frederick Douglass.
I handle it a good bit. I mean, one of the things that I like most, as far as a snippet of rhetoric that Frederick Douglass used, was the same thing that, basically, people were asking, and sometimes asking now, but not as much anymore. There's been so much harm done to people, and black people because of slavery, and he was getting the question, what shall we do with the Negro? Because that's what they called him in the 1860s. And his response was to do nothing with him. If you just leave him alone, he'll be fine. Well, and he later seems to I believe Douglass later kind of backed off of that statement. But the truth of the matter is this: for anyone of any ethnicity who wants to be free, if you give him freedom, then leave him alone. We're getting ready to enslave the Hispanic population, though I believe it will take longer, in the same way that we've enslaved blacks since 1965. We're going to pour as much money as we can into them until we break their will to be independent.
You want to weigh in on that, K. Carl?
He's exactly right. The direct quote that Douglass said when he was asked, well, there's going to free blacks with the Emancipation Proclamation, technically free blacks. They said to Douglass, what should we do with the Negro? Douglass said, leave him alone and mind your own business. Leave him alone, because your interference is causing him positive injury. Now, you contrast that with LBJ. If you Google this on the Internet, LBJ went to Howard University, one of the most prestigious historical black colleges in the country. He goes to he gives a commencement speech, and what he says in that commencement speech to these young men and women, black men and women who just finished the test of academic challenge, he said, you need more than equality. You need opportunity. In other words, you need the government to take care of you. You can contrast with Douglass. Douglass said, leave him alone and mind your own business. And that's what has to happen. Because Douglass said, you didn't do anything special for the Irish. Leave black folks alone. And, of course, the liberals couldn't do that. And they want to take care of us because they don't think we can take care of ourselves. And that's the same type of rhetoric that the slave masters spoke back in the day, that black folks got to be a slave because they can't take care of themselves. They're incapable of doing it.
Why are more blacks not offended at that?
Of what?
Because, well, let me weigh on this, because I'm going to take a slightly different tack. It is not that they don't believe that blacks can take care of themselves. You can find every Klan member who ran himself into the end of a shotgun held by a black man knows better than that. The real issue is I have to keep them in this mode, because if I ever leave them alone, I will never control them again.
Control being the operative word. I agree.
Control.
And this is why you pour money into people. So you know what? You can break them with a whip, but you're going to always get a resentment. But you know what? If I break them with money, well, you know what? Now I've made them dependent. Mm-hmm. And you know what? It's hard to get a dependent person to ever stand on his own again. It's not impossible.
Well, there's only one way to get somebody to prostitute themselves. Give them something.
You pay them.
Yeah. Well, let me throw this out to you guys, too. In my opinion, on an extremely larger scale, this is what this U.S. government is now doing to the American people. They are enslaving
regardless
us.
Of the color.
Regardless of the color. They're giving us no choice through government restrictions in every way, shape, and form, we are going to be on the government plantation whether we like it or not. We have health care. We have an immigration bill that's going to swamp our borders and, have our culture totally ripped apart. No language that's going to hold us together. And we have a situation where we can't feed our families because we're going to have to pay exorbitant amounts for heating our house and driving our cars. And all this is doing is killing jobs, so we have no way to support ourselves. And we have seeds that only last 1 year, so we might not even be able to grow our own food. We can't even put up a lemonade stand without having somebody come by from the health department and shutting these little kids down.
Which brings it back to the point. This is about one thing. This is about control. And it's never been about anything else. The founders predicted that this would happen. As a matter of fact, it was the statement that was attributed to Franklin when he emerged from the Constitutional Congress. What did you give us? A republic if you can keep it. Well, we're not doing a real good job of keeping it.
But people come up to me all the time and say, what can I do? I just don't even want to turn the news on anymore, I'm afraid. And I said, you know what? Bad things happen when good people do nothing. I'm not saying you got to pick up, arms or whatever, but you do have to be cognizant of what's going on around you. Try to enlighten people in your own little area and do get prepared for the worst case scenario. And, a couple of years ago, I would have said, man, I was a conspiracy theorist. I'm starting to think that it's not so far-fetched anymore.
Well, here's a thought, and Mr. Smith should weigh in on this one. I'm like, wow. You're going to have to get back to the point where it's like this. The great, those who were considered the great peaceful movement leaders of the last century, Gandhi, King, even they understood that there would be no change without blood. But nobody is willing to suffer anything anymore in order to make change. They want to recognize. But you know what? King and company took a beating. And the British slaughtered countless Indians before they finally let that place go free. If you are watching a government, the FBI director just admitted a few days ago, yeah, we got drones operating in the United States.
Yep.
And nobody said a word.
Yep. It's a limited capacity, Stan. It's only limited.
Well, but and the thing is, the only ones who are talking about if you really want to fix what's wrong with the U.S. and the U.S. government, there's one thing that they'll never do, and you keep finding it. It's like, you know what? If you really cared about people being abused by the government, then when you find an agency that is blatantly doing so, why won't you shut it down? And the IRS is still in operation.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a creeping tyranny is really what it is.
Not anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, K. Carl, do we have a Frederick Douglass out there that can and will run? Are there Frederick Douglasses out there? Because I got to be honest, man, I haven't seen any.
I don't know about if they will run, but there's some people that caught my attention that that champions the values of Douglass. Dr. Ben Carson's one. Mm-hmm. And he's a courageous enough man to do it. There are others, but I don't think it's going to be hard to find someone that has all four of those values. At one time, Lincoln didn't have all four, but Douglass did not give up on Lincoln. So Douglass, along with Harriet Tubman, married Harry Beecher Stowe, Wendell Phillips, and Charles Sumner, they started agitating Lincoln, putting pressure on him, and Lincoln improved as a statesman and as a leader, and later signed the Emancipation Proclamation because during his first inaugural address, Lincoln supported slavery in the South and the Future of the Slave Clause. So we got to find politicians who are close to being 4 for 4, and then by putting them in office and agitate them. We probably can't change their values, but you can get them to change their legislation.
You mentioned Dr. Benjamin Carson. you notice how all of a sudden he's really quiet because they put a lot of pressure on him. You just know they did, because initially when he sort of kind of put Obama in his place at the prayer breakfast, afterwards Obama or one of his minions came up to him and said, running for office is a hard thing and you've never done it before, to which Carson replied, "It's not brain surgery."
Yeah,
he would have been, he really was getting legs. And I really think a lot of people were looking up to him and wondering if that's possibly the person that we could have lead us out of this whole mess. I don't see it now, but the fact that Senator Gilroy in Louisiana has gone viral, there's obviously a need. People want leadership, and there's such a void from the right. It's just not funny.
Well, but I'm sorry. I mean, just were you going to say something? So please go ahead.
No, and I think what's happening, and again, based on the Senator Guillory experience that I had with him, you're going to see more and more people start making a move, because people are, especially the blacks, they are conservative at heart. We're not voting our values, but we're conservative at heart. And what Frederick Douglass does for them, it gives them the encouragement now to come out of that closet and let people know, hey, I am a conservative because my values are in lockstep with Douglass. Therefore, they're not fearful of the attacks of the left and the humiliation that comes when you step out and be a black conservative. That's why Douglass is key.
I have, in debating and discussing politics and the political environment with my black friends, I bring that up a lot. The fact that blacks are conservative at heart. Conservative values.
I think most people are. Everybody wants what's best for their family.
But when you've got 98% of the vote going to a Democrat, far left, liberal, Marxist, you just go, what are you doing? And you know what? In 2008, quite honestly, and Stan, you and I've talked about this in depth. In 2008, if I had the opportunity for what that I could vote for what at least looked like a white guy, if we'd had black and Hispanic and Asian presidents for 200 years, I'd have voted for the guy. I would have voted out of racial pride. And I don't fault a single individual that's black for voting for Barack Obama in 2008. Because I can't say with any degree of certainty that if the role was completely reversed, that I might not do the same thing. But at the same time, I've watched what's happened over the past 4 years, and I'm going, guys, you're getting used again, and this is and they're playing games with you. They're playing games with you. You have gone from the slave plantation to the government plantation.
And Herman Cain said that, but he was so vilified and run out of town on a rail.
Well, I'm sure I'll be called a racist for saying that.
Well, it's the first time I had actually heard a politician use that phrase, and I was really happy that Herman Cain was coming out, because I figured somebody who had his stature would start to open up the minds and the eyes of so many people in the black community that the Democrat Party is not helping them. It's hindering them. And again, as Don said, in 2008, I can't blame anybody for voting for Obama. And you wanted the best for the country. The fact that after getting 4 years of blaming Bush and him doing absolutely nothing to get reelected is what blows my mind, because the information's not getting out there. And that I also do blame on the mainstream media, which is why we do this show.
Okay, Carl, what do you think about the GOP leadership, or as I would term it, the lack of leadership, but the guys that are holding the top positions in the GOP and the established GOP, the Karl Roves, the Boehners, the Lindsey Grahams? I mean, I think they're despicable.
Gag me with a spoon.
But I'd be curious as to what your thoughts are.
Well, I am totally, and as a Frederick Douglass Republican, we are anti-establishment, anti-status quo Republican Party. This Republican Party today does not resemble the party of Frederick Douglass. So therefore, the leadership of this party is lacking. Karl Rove has the wrong answer. So Karl Rove is sucking up resources. Mm-hmm. Karl Rove keeps giving us candidates who can't win. And their solution is the people at the top, that in order to have this big tent, that we have to compromise conservative principles, that we have to cease being who we are. That's not the answer. The problem is not with the message, because our message stands the test of time. The problem is the method on how you deliver that message, where you can trump the race card, defeat the class warfare attack, because if you can't defeat those two things, your message falls on deaf ears because you have already been discredited. So they don't have an answer. They don't know what they're doing. And it's about time for them to get the hell out of the way.
Well, what it is it's a money grab. Quite frankly, that's really all it is. It's they don't really care who wins. They made their millions, they have their PACs, and therefore it really doesn't matter to them, and they'll run somebody else. What matters is how much money somebody has, and unfortunately, that really is a key. And Romney had the money.
Okay, Carl, go back to one thing if you don't mind. You brought up Dr. Benjamin Carson. Give me another guy.
I don't have anybody come to mind right now. I tell you what, it's not Bush. It's not Jeb Bush. I can tell you it's not.
I agree.
I'm yelling at the radio with that one. Go away. Just go away.
We don't need another Bush. I tell you that. And that's who the establishment is trying to push down our throat now. They're trying to champion Jeb Bush. And let me leave it right there. I tell you who I would not want. I don't want Bush.
Stay out the bushes.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's horrible.
Stan, you got an idea who you think would be somebody that we could all believe in?
No one has emerged yet, but my thought was, here's the problem. We actually have gotten to the point where we believe that there's a political party difference at its core, and here's one of the things I'm talking about. Notice how whenever the government's power is threatened, whether they be Democrats or Republicans, they rally in defense of the government. What are the consequences at the IRS? There are none.
Yep.
Everybody is now basically has come to the conclusion in the government that Edward Snowden is some type of traitor and should be jailed. Really? Mm-hmm. So, to the point where we're no longer discussing the fact that the Fourth Amendment has been erased.
That's just the latest amendment that's been erased.
Granted, but you see, do you see my point? Republican or Democrat, this is not about there is no ideological difference on the thing that matters. We want to have you under control. That's not it. That does not differentiate by party.
No,
because
I agree.
Whenever government control is threatened or exposed, almost across the board, I have yet to hear an elected official in D.C. basically take the government to task to the point that anything happens besides a meaningless verbal condemnation.
Well,
the NSA is still collecting the same information that it's been collecting. The IRS is still doing what it's doing.
Mm-hmm. And they're going to run health care.
They're still ignoring immigration, and though the people do not care about immigration, here it comes. Though they dislike Obamacare, here it comes. Yep. This is not, as I said, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government. And the thing is, everybody thinks the Constitution's a big deal. The Constitution is not what founded this country. It's the Declaration. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, you have a right to do something, and nobody is willing to recognize that government has become destructive of these ends. I don't care about the Constitution if people are not going to live by it. What good does it do?
Well,
what I need is to find either someone who's going to place the Constitution in its proper place, which is no one who's in the current government, or I need to form another government that either will honor that Constitution or one that guarantees similar rights, and will do that. As long as you are going to support the current government, please expect Einstein's definition of insanity. You're going to do the same thing over and over again, and what is going to happen?
There's only two people that would even come to mind in my eyes, and that's Rand Paul and Ted Cruz. K. Carl, are you doing some workshops in the near future? Can you tell us where they're going to be?
I'm actually headed to. I got one in Atlanta the week after the 4th of July. We're going to be in 3 counties there: Cobb County, Cherokee County, and Fulton County. We're going to conduct Frederick Douglass Liberty Messenger one-on-one seminars, and then some other states that are coming online. I think it's North Carolina will be coming up, Nashville, Tennessee. I don't know the dates off the top of my head because I'm actually in Florida right now, just finishing a seminar workshop today.
Now, and, it's on your website, I would assume, or you will have it up on your website?
No, I won't have it on my website because.
And tell us why.
Training.
Tell us why you won't.
I decided to take the training underground. Well, number one, for personal security reasons, number one.
Oh, okay.
Number two, I've taken my training dates off the website. And if you want to know the dates, you have to call that number, and we'll talk to you. That way we can filter what's going on. Because I don't want the opposition to know what's going on to the full extent, because we want to grow this movement of Frederick Douglass Liberty Messengers. And before they know it, we'll have 15, 30 million people who are trained in this methodology, and we can start the effort of change the political culture in this country.
Stan,
you don't need to.
Stan, we're going to say goodbye. K. Carl, we've got another caller that would like to come in. Stan, we're going to have to say goodbye to you for the night, but thank you, sir, for calling in, and we'll try to take this call.
Well, let me just say real quick, Stan, also thank you. Black Man Thinkin', THINKIN.com is Stan's blog. And please go check that out as well. Everybody listening in, we'd appreciate that. And can you tell me who is on the line? Or we have another caller?
Well, we lost him, but we'll get him back in here.
Bummer. K. Carl, how about your book? I want a copy of your book. What is the name of your book, and where can we find it?
The title of the book is Frederick Douglass Republican, The Movement to Reignite America's Passion for Liberty. Of course, you can go to Amazon and get the book, or you can come to our website to get the book. And when you come to the website, not only will you get the book, you'll get the companion guide for free that comes with the book, but you can't get the companion guide at Amazon. So it's FrederickDouglassRepublican.com or FrederickDouglassRepublican.org, where you can get the book and the companion guide.
Mm-hmm.
I want a FDR shirt.
That's on the website. Well, right now I just found out that shirt, when you order T-shirts from the website, the T-shirt you will get will be the Frederick Douglass Republican T-shirt. It has 3 big bold letters on it. It says FDR. It's not who you think. Frederick Douglass Republican. That's the T-shirt that you get, but the image is not on the website. We got to get that fixed in the next 48 hours.
I love that, man.
That is pretty funny.
I want to go back. You announced the Atlanta event.
Yes.
Or the seminar. Are you able to expand on that at all as far as location and date at this point, or is that something that you got to hold off on doing?
Yeah, I got to hold off on doing it because that's in the works. But I know that what happened when I get close to it, I will put something out through Facebook and Twitter to let people know where it's going to be. But I got to hold off on that because that's still in the preliminary phase. But we're going to formalize something this week.
But it will be open to the public, right?
Yes, it's open to the public. Yes.
Even white guys with cowboy hats?
Most definitely. Matter of fact, it's mandatory that you be there.
Well, if you can get me the date, I'll be there.
How about the Tea Partiers? Are they involved with this? Because I know the Tea Party in Atlanta is pretty strong.
Most definitely. This training that we're doing, we are intentionally traveling the country, and we're preaching to the conservative choir. We're preaching to the Tea Party activists. The National Federation of Republican Women. We're teaching to these 9/12 activists. We're teaching to conservative activists to empower them, equip them, and train them how to go out and bring in new choir members. But the choir needs to be taught a new song how to sing. And the song that we teach them how to sing is the Frederick Douglass Republican Message or the Frederick Douglass Liberty Messenger Melody.
Well, it's an honor to speak with you, and I really do think what you're doing is certainly commendable. I hope and I pray that more and more people will open their eyes to this, because all you do is whenever you do get somebody who disagrees with you is you're a racist, you're disagreeing with Barack Obama, and you just can't do that. And it's hard for somebody that's, really doesn't have the ammo to really talk to these people. This is actually something I want to really look into and be able to try to engage people more to think about what they're saying.
That's what the training is all about. The training is to teach conservatives how to engage. In other words, how to talk to your friends, your family members, and your fellow citizens about your conservative values without the fear of being labeled a racist or a sellout. And in turn, you inspire them to join the ranks of your movement. We've been doing this now. I've been doing this for 4.5 years now, and we have a 90% success rate of taking values and turning them into conservative votes. And so now we got to teach the choir how to do the same thing.
Well, I got to tell you,
it is transferable.
You have educated me. You've motivated me. You've inspired me. You've given me hope in my debates, but you've also made me realize that I got a lot of research I got to do on Frederick Douglass, because I can't go up being a Frederick Douglass Republican wannabe.
That's right, and you can start off by buying my book.
Well, I will. When did I meet you? 2 days ago?
Exactly, 2 days ago.
All right, you got to give me time here. I've been preparing for the show.
And I say that seriously because what I did over the past 5 years, I read everything I could get my hands on about Douglass. Philip Farner has a collection of Douglass writings that's about 900 pages thick, 6-size font, the selected writing of Douglass. John Blassingame has a selective writing of Douglass that's different from Philip Farner, 1,000 pages, size 6 font type, the writings of Douglass. Yale University has the Douglass Papers, 5 and 6 volume set. There's nothing but the writings of Douglass. So
we've got a caller. If you've got a couple of seconds, we've got one that's called in.
Okay.
Are you in there, caller?
1,000 pages, 6 font type, the writings of Douglass. Yale University has those papers, 5 and 6 volume set.
Hello? I can't make out what he's saying, unfortunately.
Okay, Carl, were you able to understand what he was saying?
Well, no, he wasn't talking. I could hear my comments being played on the speaker previously.
You got to turn your radio off there. Caller, are you there?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, hello there.
I am a Frederick Douglass Republican.
Yes.
And I can tell you, I had an FDR T-shirt, big bold letters, FDR. It's not who you think. I walked into a convenience store in Bessemer, Alabama, and there was a black man behind the counter, and he looks at my T-shirt. Now, I will tell you, the T-shirt's not a sleeping shirt. So he begins to quiz me. FDR, what is that? Frederick Douglass Republican, how interesting. And that opens me up for a chance to have dialogue with this man. Never met this man before. But as a result of that conversation, it got him to thinking. If I had come out and said I was a Republican, he would have attacked me, possibly. But because of my standing with Douglass, it made him think. I shared a few things about Douglass with him, and you never know. When he goes home, he might get on the internet and do some research, which may in turn inspire him to want to go and vote his values. So it's imperative that we train the choir how to sing. And I very much believe that if we start Liberty Messenger, Frederick Douglass Liberty Messenger brush fires in every district in every state, that we will trump the numbers game that I hear all the time from people, especially within our District 7 here in Alabama, that there's no way that a Republican will have a chance to win in Congress against our current Congresswoman. But I believe that if we can inspire and motivate and agitate those people out there to want to go and learn more, and inspiring people, that we can really make a difference. And I will tell you that I've got a close friend of mine. He's a Democrat. I talked to her. She has, in her history, experience with Coretta Scott King as a child. And I have a conversation with her, and I talk about Douglas. We talk about politics, and she doesn't get offended by me. How can you be offended by a man who was below poverty, that didn't even have the right to own his body? How can you be offended by someone who went to great lengths to educate themselves and pull themselves up out from underneath that? You know, and I just want to say that I'm very inspired by what you're doing, Kay Carl, and I hope that we can challenge others out there across the nation to want to get involved. And if you have not been involved in a training session, an SBR training session or a Frederick Douglass Republic training session, I would really to challenge you to go and reach out to those people within your groups that you're involved in, your conservative groups, whether it be Tea Parties or Women Republican Federation or Republican Assemblies or your GOP groups, and bring him in to do training, because this is so key. This is so key. The left has so much experience. They have so much experience in the lies. They believe them themselves. And we have got to train each other how to go out and have that dialogue with people in the community. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you from my own personal experience in doing it in the area that I live in the state of Alabama, that it works. It works. It's proven. And we're going into other states and doing the same thing. People are finding out that we know what the problem is, but what is the solution? I have people talking to me all the time about how do I have the courage to go into, you tell me I need to go into the barbershop. I need to go into those communities where the liberals live and engage. What am I going to say to them when I get in there? I'm scared. I don't know what to say. How do I approach them? And what training does is it teaches you how to do that. You go through a personal dialogue. You do role playing and that sort of thing. And I think this is very, very key. So I really commend Kay Carl for what he is doing, inspiring the conservative base. We have many Frederick Douglass Liberty Messengers that are springing up all across the United States. And I want to thank you guys for being willing to have him on your show, to give him this platform to really speak to the masses, because this is so powerful. This is a political game changer. We can change the nation through the Frederick Douglass Republican movement.
Well, I got to tell you that the two conversations that I've had with Kay Carl have really motivated me and inspired me. And when I was getting, because Kay Carl, I think you and I talked about this on Sunday when we spoke. I'm 52 years old, and for the first 47 years of my life, I was never called a racist. And ever since Barack Obama took office, I've been labeled a racist probably on average 2 to 3 times a week for the past 4.5 to 5 years. And the ironic thing about it is that I've never been labeled a racist ever by a black person, only by a white liberal.
Well, Chris Matthews says every white person is a racist if you're a Republican.
And that has become, I mean, it's wearing on me. It's frustrating. It's painful to have to listen to that and tolerate it. And I gotta be candid. You have given me hope and inspiration of a way that if I do enough research and attend your seminar in Atlanta, Georgia,
and
whenever that
book.
date might be. Get my shirt, get my book, get my ball.
You got to be you have to be properly equipped now to fight this battle. You got to have a shield and a sword. You got to have your attire, and you got to have your tongue.
Well,
and, you're right.
And I will say there's a myth. There's a myth that if you're black, that it's about equipping the blacks to go talk to blacks. And it's more, I believe that for me as a white female, as a Frederick Douglass Republican, people tend to pay attention to what I have to say. It's like, who is this white woman who's embracing Douglass?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so people really pay attention to what I have to say. And I think it's more than just trying to inspire blacks to engage blacks. It's about inspiring the whole entire conservative base to be able to engage people on the left and inspire them. I think, you know, as it's been said before, people start to question what they really truly believe in their heart at the core of their being, and they realize that, hey, I'm voting for a person in office that stands for something totally opposite of what I believe in. You know, and Douglass never once compromised his values, never once. As he stood there on a podium at risk of being kidnapped and taken back to this plantation as a runaway slave, he never compromised his values. I have a lot of respect for a man willing to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Carl, do you find that the hardest nut to crack is and I don't want to label people, but a black Democrat that's supporting Obama for reasons you can't even figure out, or that far left, white, liberal, radical nutcase? Who's the hardest nut for you to crack when you lay the Frederick Douglass Republican concept out to these folks?
It's probably elements of both groups, because you got people in both groups, one in the white liberals who don't want to lose a slave, and you got the blacks in that particular group who are part of a power broker and don't want to relinquish power. But the key is that at the grassroots level, the common American person who's going to work every day, paying taxes, they're the ones that get it. Because what I learned, the key is you have to deliver the message in a very non-confrontational, non-condescending way. And when you can show someone through love that they have been lied and betrayed, they then change how they vote. But the key is you got to do it through love, and you got to be able to do it in a way where you're not being discredited by the race card and the class warfare attacks, the two main attack weapons of the left.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got to tell you, first of all, I really appreciate the fact that you've spent as much time with us tonight. I know you had a rough day because you told me about something that happened on your way to this interview.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate your time. I hope that you felt like this door and this platform was totally open for you, because it was. And
I appreciate the opportunity.
I want to thank also our callers, especially someone who is working with the Frederick Douglass movement. That's very inspirational to know it's starting to branch out, and hopefully we can help that as well.
Ma'am, you sound like a valedictorian from Frederick Douglass Republican University. Is she still with us?
I have an 11-year-old son, and I'm doing this for him.
Good for you.
I'm doing this for the God that I serve. I'm doing this for our forefathers that fought hard to write the Constitution. I'm doing this for those of us that may not be aware. Once you become knowledgeable and have the truth in front of you, then you can do something. And it's time for us to equip. We've got to inspire those to do this. The training tools do help. They do help. And I talk to people daily that are wanting to know, that are inquiring, and they hear about this. Some people have actually cried because they say, I have felt so despondent and so depressed since November of last year that they have lost hope. And this is inspiring people to say, now I have something that I can fight for. I really believe now that I have something I can get behind that will be something that they can actually, defend. I mean, we don't all have all this kinds of money, to get out there and do things. But I'm telling you, if you have the opportunity to spend $20 to go to the website and buy a book, it'll be the best book you've read all year long, because it is a tool that teaches you how to. And that's the question I think that I hear a lot when I watch the news and see all these different shows where they have these panels of people talking about how to do this and how do you gauge people and stuff. And this is the answer. And I'm seeing this time and time again. It's just, this is how we're going to take back the nation. And we're not going to do it by electing officials or trying to run officials that run on a moderate platform. Douglas never compromised. And I don't think that we as Americans who stand up for our Constitution and for the God that we serve should have to compromise our principles either.
Well, that's very well said, too.
Okay, Carl, it sounds like you got a soldier, brother.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, we got to grow an army of 15 million soldiers by November 2014, so we got some work to do, and another 15 million by 2016. So we can do this thing, and I know we can because I read the last chapter of the book, and guess what? We won.
It's got a happy ending.
Oh yeah. The question is, what's going to be the strategy that's going to take us to victory, and that's the Frederick Douglass message.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, Kate Carl, what is the phone number? Can you give that out at this point, or just the website?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh no, the phone number is for more information. It's area code 205-492-1810. 205-492-1810. And tell Stan that I enjoyed chatting with him as well.
Yeah, you got to check out his
Stan's
blog.
a good guy.
Yeah, he is. BlackManThinkin' with no G at the end, .com. And also your website, again, Frederick Douglass with two S's, Republican, no S, .com or .org. Frederick Douglass, Republican, .com and .org. Please check that out, everybody. We do appreciate you. K. Carl Smith for joining us, and our callers, just wonderful, both of you. We thank you so much. I wish we had more time. Once we get rolling on these shows, it's hard to stop. And since the evening is ours, we're allowed to go just as long as we needed to. So we went overtime on this because I found it fascinating. Donna and I are going to do our homework now and really learn more about Frederick Douglass, because it is a way to finally try to get more people to open their eyes and their minds to politics and to what's going on in Washington. Hopefully we can turn this country around. It's a big ship, and it's going to take a lot of movement and a lot of power to bring this back in the right direction. Did you want to say something, honey?
No, I really want to thank you. I really appreciate you've given me hope. And man, I got to tell you, I've been feeling like I've been beat down pretty hard over the last 4.5 to 5 years. 5 years, because I started this about midway through 2008, and you've given me hope, sir, and I thank you for that.
We're thankful to God that He has given us Frederick Douglass for a time like this.
Absolutely, and
I just wish I could grow some hair like Frederick Douglass.
Well, don't worry about it. You can be like me and not have any hair.
I tell you what, if I go through by the end of these 4 years here, I'll probably be as gray as Frederick Douglass is in these
pretty
pictures.
gray right now.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm going to throw the phone number out again. K. Carl Smith, thank you again for joining us. And I want to also encourage everybody out there to call your senators and your congressmen and tell them not to vote for this immigration bill, or we will get the Frederick Douglass Republicans against them big time. Especially Johnny Isaacs in here in this state. Gosh, got to wake up in Saxby Chambliss. The phone number for the Frederick Douglass Republicans, 205-492-1810. I wrote it down, K. Carl. Okay, 205-492-1810. And the book, again, you can get on the website, frederickdouglassrepublican.com or .org. K. Carl Smith, again, thank you so much for joining us here on Cowboy Logic Radio. We look forward to seeing you in Atlanta. And please, again, check in periodically on the website or call that phone number and find out if K. Carl is going to be in your area. And even if not, get the book, start to get educated, and start educating others. That's the way to start. The grassroots movement is the best way to go. Okay,
thank you, sir.
K. Carl.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Kind of wraps up another show, and it's time for myself. Oh, there I am. Time flies when you're having fun. And I want to mention also StandUpAmericaUS.org is our partner here at Cowboy Logic Radio. General Paul Vallely hopefully will be joining us sometime in the next couple of weeks. He's got some big news to tell us about things that he's got going on as far as international politics and things going on with Syria and with the Middle East and all kinds of other stuff. So I wanted to mention one last time also StandUpAmericaUS.org. Please check out that website and also the Scott Vallely Soldiers Memorial Fund. And boy,
why don't you tell us about next week?
Next week, we have Sheila J. Butler, who's going to be talking to us about health care.
Yeah,
She's
here's the thing.
Insurance person.
I had a gentleman come in my office this afternoon who I did not know. Danny actually brought him in and introduced him to me and said, this guy's got a bunch of questions about health care. And he needs to know what's going on with Obamacare and all the effect that that's going to have on his personal life. Well, first thing we did is we sent him to the archives and had him listen to Mark Simons, who was on last week, who was a CPA who we actually manipulated a little bit into talking about what's going to happen with insurance. But this next week, Sheila J. Butler is going to join us. She's been in the health insurance world for decades. And it's going to be another candid conversation, very much like we had with Mark Simons, in which layman terms are laid out. She's going to talk like I can understand her. And if I can understand her, then I know you will be able to. But she'll be joining us next week. And then the following week, we hope, and we may even move this up to the second part of the Sheila Butler show, depending on what kind of time we're running. We're going to have another Cowboy Logic Roundtable.
Always a lot of fun.
And I believe that we have our 3 victims.
Do we have a token liberal?
We do have a token liberal, but
yes,
I can't divulge who he is. He's a good guy. He just lives in California. He's a liberal.
Well, Stan lives in California. I don't know how he does it, but he does.
What does he say on his ID? He's tolerating Governor Moonbeam. Anyhow, it's getting late. We all have to get up and go to work tomorrow, and we have to get ready for your archive to be uploaded.
Yep. We have to
I
pay
want
our
to thank
taxes,
our engineer, our new engineer.
Yes.
My family member, because he's the only guy that we trust since we're now on the air. Quite frankly, we're sure we've got drones circling over the farm at some point, black helicopters, the whole 9 yards, right?
That's okay. I got nothing to hide. Bring it on. Bring it on.
Including the AR-15s. Bring it on. Anyway, we want to thank Dave Griffith, our new engineer. We might refer to him from time to time as Mr. Producer.
Which I can't see Dave at all because of this humongous monitor that we have here now.
That's okay. That's why we've got these little texting things going on. Yeah, really. At any rate, we're going to be back next week, same time, same station. Mm-hmm. Please help us spread the word. Spread the word about K. Carl Smith and the Frederick Douglass Republicans. Please, I know you guys that are listening, you're probably thinking that this is all preaching to the choir, but now you're the choir. Go out and spread the word for us. As we close, I want to play the Stand Up America theme song. I'm starting to like this, and I'm humming it all the time.
I love it.
So at any rate, have a great week, guys. We'll see you next Tuesday night. Join us on Facebook, The Real Cowboy Logic on Facebook. Join us in there, and let's stir up the pot a little bit.
Make sure you call your congressmen and your senators. Speak out against this immigration. All it is a way to get a lot of people here in the United States to stay here who came illegally, and we want legal immigration. That's fine, but not illegal, because this is just another major nightmare, an abomination.
You got that right. You think Obamacare's bad? Wait till you see this thing take effect.
Wait till you see the coal industry die, too, and your heating and air conditioning bills go up 35%. But that's another show as well. Oh, my gosh. It's just, it's never ending.
You got to see the piles of paper that Donna has in front of her
I
here.
can't even see my keyboard. Oh, there it is. Okay, I'm done now.
Guys, we love you, and good night.
All eyes are watching to see what you'll do. Who'll take the chance and make the first move? Will you shun the praise of the world in the moment of truth? The trumpets are sounding, the drums start to roll. The tempter is waging a war for your soul, and victory belongs to those who will fight to the end. So let's stand up and take each other's hand.
Cowboy Logic Radio. Unfiltered, politically incorrect, common sense. You've been listening to Cowboy Logic Radio, a division of Donna Fiducia Production.